So I finally came in, little thing I purchased on eBay a couple days ago, a vintage Radio Shack computer, TRS-80 Model 100. Now the computer came in this wonderful leather case here. Despite the age, the leather is still very soft, supple. It doesn't seem to have any hard age spots in it. It does have a small blemish here, and on the back, I believe, yeah, there's a little, like, something tried to punch through it right there. Camera might not see it too well. But, yeah, for 40 years old, it's in pretty good nick. Oh, and the Velcro's still in great shape, too. Really great shape. But this is it. And I can see that the plastic has seen a little bit of sunlight this time, but not a terrible amount. Probably spent a lot of time actually in that leather case in an attic somewhere. What's the keys? These switches are really nice. They're definitely a mechanical switch of some kind. It does not feel like there's a membrane aspect to it. Now, the listing was a 4 parts of repair listing, and they did say on the listing that actually the battery cover was missing, which is not a huge deal whatsoever, and that there are a few dead keys. Okay, so what I've done now is I've actually typed every single key on the keyboard. I have noticed a couple of things. The caps lock and the num lock key, well, I guess just number key, actually lock in the recessed position when they're activated, instead of having like a light on the panel. Something like what we might be used to. So as far as the buttons that I think are damaged, or rather are certain are damaged, the F8 key does not do anything. And to illustrate that, we'll actually circle back to it later. Also, the numeral 8 key does not work. The I key does not work. The K and L key do not work. And the question mark or slash button, forward slash button, do not work. And those are the only ones that I've been able to confirm do not work. There are a couple of keys on here I'm not actually sure if they do anything. Graph and code down by the space bar, and I guess escape too. But everything else seems to be working. There is one other thing I noticed though. So if I press this button here, it says label. All of these things pop up to tell me what the different function keys do. And this is how I know F8 doesn't work. If you look at that 8 column over here, it says men and then has a couple of dots on it. But when I caught this screen at the right angle, I noticed something that I'm about to show you now. You can see some lines appear where those dots are. We've got a couple of dead pixel rows here for the last, looks like 4 character columns. I think what that's supposed to say is menu, so by pressing F8, it would actually take you back to the home page, just as this reset button back here does. Now the buttons I am very sure I can fix. What it was F8, 8, I, K, L, and question mark. None of them type anything. I am very certain I can fix those. These dead pixels over here on the screen now, I might be able to fix those. Hopefully it's something really simple, like the solder joints have gone bad over the last 40 years. That's really all there is to say on it. We're just going to get started. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start taking this thing out. I've removed the batteries, and it looks pretty straightforward. There's 4 screws, 1 in each corner, and we'll just start with that. Oh, okay. There's a surprise for us. Somebody has already been in here. This screw is missing. Looks like that's the only missing screw. Okay, that was not mentioned in the listing. Oh, I think someone has been in here. Try and see if the camera will see that. See how that edge is all chewed up? I didn't notice that. Ah, got it. Since all of our repairs are on this side, we'll try and take as many cables as we can off this side. After, I take a picture of where everything goes, because believe me, you don't want to make that mistake. Well, that doesn't want to let go, so we'll actually pull that from this side where it is coming off. That's the two halves separated. We know which switches are dead, and we're going to address that first, solve the problem on this board, and then we can pop out this board and start addressing or trying to address the LCD. Alright, let's fire up the multimeter. I am having trouble gauging where that is. We might have to take the, we might have to take this out. Just so we can see what it's doing first of all. That's not very definitive, is it? Huh. Well, how in the heck do these things do it? How in the heck are they completing a circuit? I know the spacebar works, so I know that switch works. Let's try these up here, these function keys. So these are not common together right now. But that seems to be doing what it's supposed to. Well, perhaps I don't actually know what's going on in here. That is a very real possibility. Let me cut this recording, play around a little bit, and then we'll revisit it. Alright, it took a little bit longer than I wanted. Actually, I flat out forgot to focus on the video and just got into the rabbit hole of the repair. I'll stick up a couple of pictures here of the removed keyboard, and what I actually ended up doing was removing the keys so I can get a good view of the switches. What I have determined is these 6 contacts here are the switches, and almost all of them have, it looks like a Zener diode, or Zener depending on who you are and how you pronounce it, across these 2 points here. You can actually see the little symbol right there. So what I did for this is I actually took a Sharpie and marked the problem keys. So you can see on this one here, which is a question mark or slash key, there's a little black mark right there over that trace. So you can see that black mark really well now. All of the keys that were a problem have a mark like that on them, right in the center of the pads for the switch. The reason why I marked them is because I wanted to see what traces each switch had in common. And really, they don't have a whole lot. I mean, all the switches share this one big rail here. This has got to be a power rail of some kind, maybe a ground plane, I don't know. These 2 on the bottom are the ones that actually get shorted together when you depress the switch. So, starting from this key here, because it was the lowest one on it, I could have followed this through to the diodes, and I did in fact briefly do it. And that's when I figured out that these diodes also share common pads with non-relevant switches. See, it comes from this pad here, goes down to this top node on the switch for the question mark, which I have not figured out what those do yet. And then the same trace continues around off of your frame. So it's still in my lens, but it's out of your frame. Continues around this trace here and comes down to this T-junction. Now this T-junction, we'll follow it along this way. Serpentines back over, and there it is, touching another switch on the same pin. Because remember, we just came from, make sure this is sight, yep. We just came from this pin over here on the question mark switch. So this is another switch that is not related to the problem. So that rules out those traces there. So now let's start over back on the question mark switch from this pin here. And as we follow this trace, following the trace, we come up, serpentine around to this switch here. And let's see if I can get that to show up better on the camera. There it is. Would you look at that? Another black mark from a Sharpie that I put. So that's a common key. And let's go ahead and continue to follow this trace. Terminates there. And if I, again with the light, another black mark from a Sharpie. So that's another one of the problem keys. And you get the idea. This one trace here actually connects all of the keys that we're having a problem with together, and does not connect other keys. Now, after I followed the trace all the way through, I found out. So there's a T junction in the trace right here next to the numerical 24. If you follow this trace all the way around, you end up right here, which there's a black mark running through here, and that is the numerical 8 key. We follow back through the trace to the T junction and go all the way up. We end up at this point right here. And there's that vertical line right there, black mark made. That is the function 8 key. So somewhere in this trace, being as this is the only trace that commons all of those keys together, the keys that we're having a problem with, somewhere in this trace is a break of some kind. Now, while checking each individual key and where it goes from there, this pad right here at the numerical 8 key has a follow through with it. Does not end there. And it goes up to, another contact point on the switch, but look at that. Oh, that is, can I scrape any of that off? Here, let me zoom in, let's take a good look at that. Well, the camera is really not doing this thing any justice. I mean, this joint looks terrible. See if I can scrape any of that off. Oh yeah, that's disgusting. That's oxidized to hell, and it doesn't even look like the trace follows through. In fact, let me get both of those in frame. Yep. Let's put the multimeter in continuity mode and take a quick probe. Okay. So with this trace going up here, it makes sense that they should both be continuous, right? Not getting anything there. But to prove it should be continuous, we'll follow this trace back through. Let me zoom out. Image is going to be a little bit blurry, but I can still see what it's doing. So probing the one pin on 8, the one that doesn't have the broken trace going to it, and we'll follow this all the way up to the function 8. So that is continuous. But these two here are not. So why don't we come back in on that? Let me set up my soldering gear and let's see if just reflowing that joint could help. Because maybe this oxidation here is affecting continuity just enough. Although it does look like that trace is broken. It actually, I'll tell you what it really looks like. It looks like somebody took a try at that, and I'm wondering if it's the same person that lost that screw in the case. Let me take a minute, get set up, and we'll see what we can do with it. Seems to me like these pins are continuous now. So, let's 4 steps back in here and break the leash off. Let's go ahead and actually set up to test this real quick. So yeah, let me cut off here and we'll get ready to test it. I'm just going to plug it in. I'm not even going to put the keycaps back on. Alright, so there is some good news. It appears all the keys have been fixed. You can see the cursor right here under select. And if we press, I think this is 8. Nope, that's 7. This is 8. 8 now works. We've got I, K, and L, and question mark. Well, actually, shift question mark. But there is one new problem that has sprouted up. Everything is capitalized now. Look. Even if I press caps lock, they're still capitalized. If I press shift, still capitalized. So we've got one of the shift keys is now stuck on. Okay, just a slight update here. I might have been mistaken about the shift problem. So if we actually go down here to test.do and load it, if we just type in random characters, you can see that they are actually lowercase. If we press shift, they're uppercase. If we put in the caps lock, uppercase. I noticed that everything on the main menu, when we go back to that, here it is, F8 down here. Everything in this menu is capitalized. I think the main menu doesn't bother with the shift function. A lot of the older file systems, capitalization did not matter for file names. They were not case sensitive. So you actually had to rely on an independent, unique string of characters to identify different files from each other. Now, that's good news. That means I didn't break anything, as far as I know. It seems like this might just be how it's supposed to function. So, this is where we're actually going to cut it. I'm going to clean the board up because it's a bit how you doing. It's seen better days, but yeah, I'm going to clean it up, get this thing looking nice. I'll go ahead and clean the shell up because there's actually, like, these are those red marks that I was talking about. It looks like somebody was eating food on it or something. But yeah, so there we have it, folks.